so far. So for Kyle's question, I meant.
Mm-hmm.
Chat window. There we go. So lector script selects a date and then like clarifies the time and stuff. It's a different script. I won't show it, but to delete an appointment, this currently doesn't check yes or no, so I'm gonna work on that too.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I use is sed, and then it deletes the selected variable. I hope. I mean, but yeah.
Yeah.
Code Kyle. Sorry, I didn't want to. I got excited.
Yeah. Thanks. I heard you said that you deleted all your stuff on accident. I actually made a thing to run so it can delete all my stuff from file by copying a blank file over to it, because I got it really cluttered after I was running it through to like make sure it worked. So I was like, oh, I'll run this through, and now I have like one that has like nothing in it, just the type. I was like, oh, should I figure this thing out? So I made a thing that just copies a blank file over.
Cool.
If I have too many appointments, or I want to like test a new like appointment scheduler, I usually just say rm appointments, which is the file that I use, and
does it just make a new file if it references something?
Yes. If you add something to a file, it makes the new file, but you can also like overwrite the file with one arrow.
Right.
So like one arrow there, and then two arrows adds it to a new line. So, or doesn't have to actually, but yeah.
Yeah, 2 arrows appends to the bottom of a file.
Delete the file and then like make it stuff like that. So I just made a new file, copy the blank one over. Because early on I messed up my file and I got it like filled with gibberish that was just looping constantly. I don't know how I did that, but I like pasted it like a million times.
And you can make copies of your files, right? If you're going to play around with a file,
I should do that.
you know, give it a name that you won't accidentally type by mistake. And of course, if you say rm star, then it's going to delete it anyway. But you know, make backups like that, and then if the file gets munged, right, you can just copy it back from your save. So
unfortunately, that happened really, really early on for me. Like,
yeah.
As soon as I started, I wrote in like, this is an example or something.
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing testing, and then I selected it on accident and made so many copies that filled up the entire page. It filled up the entire page when I went full screen.
Ah, okay.
And then even when I held delete, it didn't go away.
Okay.
So
interesting.
I don't know how I did that. But
yeah.
The other small problem that I have is that my main computer, which is the one that I do programming on, doesn't have Zoom on it, so I'm gonna have to move put some programming stuff on my school computer.
Okay.
So, but that's just like a small thing that I can probably figure out on my own.
So, or put Zoom on the computer that you're doing the development on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's freeware.
That's fair.
And you can run Zoom from web page also.
All right, everything was. Yeah, that's fair. That'd work.
Okay. So let's talk about deleting lines from a file. So so one person mentioned that they're using sed to do that. We're going to spend most of the day talking about sed. But you know, suppose I want to get rid of all the lines that contain the word fruit. I can write a one-line sed program which says look for the pattern fruit, and if you find it, delete that line. And if I run that on foods, it gets rid of that. You can't see my screen. Let me fix that. Hold on a sec. Where did Zoom go? There it is. All right, that should be better. So you can write a one-liner for said, which in this case says look for any line that contains the pattern fruit. This is a regular expression. And if you find that, delete that line. That's what the D says. And you give it an input line, and in this case it removes all the occurrences of the word fruit from that input file. If I also wanted to delete all the vegetables, right, I could take the result of that previous sed command, I could pipe that into another instance of sed which says look for the pattern VEG, and if you find that, delete it. And now all I've got is drinks, meats, unknowns, and cookies and grains. Right? So that's one way. Another way is to use grep. This is the one that I mentioned in the video yesterday, and hopefully everybody's looked at the video I posted yesterday if you're having trouble. I put up like a 20-some minute video with several things like this, tips and tricks that will help you possibly with homework 7 as far as bash processing, editing things in a line, changing spaces to commas, searching for things in a file, capturing dialogue output, echoing things to a file, looping and building a string inside a loop, reading contents of a file from inside bash, bunch of things like that. It's posted on the regular channel, it's indexed, it's a good go-to. I think I mentioned in there using grep to do searches. So if I want to search for the word cookie in a file, I can just say grep cookie and look for that in my file. Let me put some space in here, right? And there's the cookies that I found. If I want to remove the cookies from a file, I can do a grep-v. -v reverses the search operation. It says show me the lines that do not contain the word cookie. And now I've got, output that doesn't have cookies in it. Now it doesn't change the file, right? This is just on standard out, but I could put this into, foods.to, and then if I said move foods.to to foods, now when I look at foods, there's no cookies in there, right? So I've deleted those lines from the file. And this is not a bad process. Do a grep-v to some temporary file, and then move the temporary file to the original file, and that'll take its place.
Nick?
Yeah.
So with that sed method, does it include can you put a variable and then does it remove the line containing that, or does it just remove that instance?
So let's say read type, and I'll type in meat, right? And then if I say sed, if you put this in double quotes, it'll do the replacement. If you put it in single quotes, the $sign will just be a $sign. So I can say /string type delete foods, and so there should be no meat in here, just spam.
So double quotes works and not single quotes?
Yeah, if you do single quotes, it will look for a $sign followed by the letters TYPE, right? And it's not doing the variable substitution. So single quotes suppress the expansion of $signs.
And just to be clear, it gets rid of the instance but not the line?
It gets rid of that whole line.
Oh, okay.
Right, so if that pattern is found on the line, it will delete the entire line.
That's very useful, thank you.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, to get credit for editing an appointment. Do we need to be able to edit parts of the appointment independently, or just can we edit the whole appointment, overwrite it?
You can overwrite it. So Yeah, you can override it, but it's also pretty straightforward, I think, to put it up in a dialog box and let the person make changes.
Yeah.
But remember,
I'm
you
having difficulty.
so there's a thing called an edit box, which will let you put up the contents of a file and then make changes to it, and then when you exit the dialog, you can capture everything that was in that file in a variable, and then you could put that back into the file or something. But remember, you get to demo this yourself, right? So you can you know, to some degree, set your demo to show off the features that you want to show off. And if as long as you know how to edit an appointment, right, you can show that feature. And I'm not you know looking for a production ready appointment calendar here. I'm not going to try to break it. I'm not going to try to do you know code injection hacks. I'm not going to try to deliberately make it fail. I just want to see you know creativity. I want to see what you come up with. I want to see the core functionality, and then you know the 3 additional features of your choosing. It's not going to be you know a lot of intense testing basically. Mostly I'm just looking for core behavior here. So yeah, whatever you think makes sense for editing an appointment should be good. All right, let's talk about presentations for homework 7. So presentations are going to start tomorrow. So tomorrow I'll spend the beginning of class talking about your final programming assignment, okay, which I'll post probably tonight. And that's going to be a bash program, so we're going to stick with bash for assignment 5. And it should be a pretty fun one. So we'll spend a bit of time tomorrow morning going over the appointment, the assignment, and then we're going to start presentations. Okay, so you should come to class, you should be prepared to present. And here's how this is going to work. It's going to be volunteer, so whoever posts first in chat that they're ready to present, right, we'll just go in that order. And ballpark, you know, 5 minutes for a demo is probably reasonable. You want to show, you know, the required functions, you want to show 3 additional features, and then just do a quick run through the code just to let people see, you know, what you've coded and so on. And then if there's something that you want to talk about in detail, you know, if you figure out how to use sed to do something, if there was something that was really hard to get it to work and you came up with a clever solution, right, you can talk about that. I'm not going to run a stopwatch on people, but we have, you know, close to 60 people, close to 30 people in this section, not a whole lot of groups, okay? I got very few requests to work in groups from people, so it's mostly going to be individual presentations. So if each person takes 15 minutes, we're going to be doing this for the rest of the quarter. So try to you know plan what you're going to say, but it's very low key, right? The whole goal is just to you know let the class and let me see what you came up with and how it works. So just you know show off your work, go through the functions, and that should be good. Here's the one trick though, okay? So I'll say, okay, who wants to present next, right? And anybody can volunteer that wants to. When we get to the point where I say, okay, who wants to present next, and nobody wants to present, that's where homework 7 ends. And if you have not presented by then, it's going to be a 0, okay? So I'm trying to avoid the following. I'm trying to avoid, you know, spending tomorrow and Monday on presentations. Who wants to present next? Nobody wants to present. And then later on in the week, someone comes along and says, oh, I forgot to present. Can I present today? Okay? I don't want these things to stretch out. I want all the presentations to happen in a block, and then we'll go ahead and put in grades, and then homework 7 will be done. We'll close the books on it. All right? Which means you want to come to class, you want to be prepared to present. If you can't come to every class, right, come tomorrow and you know, put your hand up early and say, I'd like to present, you know, as soon as possible. But ideally, you know, come to every class and be ready to do presentations. Only one person has to present per group, but you're certainly encouraged if you want to take turns talking about it, different sections and so on. That's fine. If you're working with somebody from the earlier section of class, still only one person has to present. I don't have to see a presentation in both sections. But if you both want to present, right, then there'd be two presentations basically, because one in the A, one in the B. Are we required to have a unique name for our calendar? I made it on my own computer, which doesn't make an issue of having a calendar script, unlike Linux server. Yeah, so you want to be running this on the Linux server ideally. I'm going to run it on the Linux server. So my calendar is named calendar. I would say go ahead and put it under /temp and make your own /temp/calendar/something directory on your own machine, and just point to your calendar there, and have the same directory set up on the Linux server so that when I run your code, it's already pointing to the right path. Project folder is called, if that's your Git, and temp calendars, yeah, you can call it whatever you want as long as your script knows how to get to it. That's totally fine. And yeah, so the only thing that's particular about naming conventions is for the Git submission. So there's details in the assignment for what you have to call your repo. It's homework 007. Make sure I'm set up as a reporter, and make sure that only one person in the group submits their code to Git and makes me a reporter. Okay. If there's multiple submissions, I'll grade whichever one I happen to come across first. If your folder is called the wrong thing, okay, so let's talk about Git for a minute, right? If something got messed up on GitLab, if you made a homework 007 and something went wrong, right? You can always do the following: go into GitLab, blow away that repository, right? Open the repository, go to settings, go to advanced settings, go all the way to the bottom, say delete. Type in the name of the repository, click the scary red button that says this is going to be permanent, right? And just get rid of the whole thing from GitLab, right? This is assuming you've got a copy on your own system, right? And once it's gone from GitLab, just start over with the whole Git setup on your Linux system. So if you've already got a working Git repository, all you have to do is the git remote add origin and then git push. If your Git is totally messed up on your own system, right, make a new directory called, whatever. Copy your files into there, do the git init, git add, git commit, and then do the git remote add origin and the git push, right? All right, the file names I'm not particular about, the directory name I'm not particular about, just make sure the repository is uppercase HW007 and I'm set up as a reporter. Can you download a folder from temp calendar? Sure. You can do a copy /r, put in a directory name, and it will copy it into your current directory. Or you can copy individual files. All right, let's see, did I miss any questions? I think I got all the questions on there. If somebody asked something that I didn't address, let me know. All right, good. Yeah, I meant to say -r. So let's just do that. So let's suppose you're on the Linux server and I've got a directory called Nick. I don't have anything in there. All right, so there's my calendar directory, right? And I've got some test files in there that my code is presumably picking up and working with. So I'm over here. Let's say I want to copy that directory into my current directory. I could just copy if I do a copy -R, right, that made a new directory in my current directory called Nick, and it's got the contents of whatever was in there, including other subdirectories and so on. Right, so you can copy with a -R. That means do the copy recursively, so it'll actually pick up the directories and so on. But, you know, unless you're nesting directories and so on, probably the easiest way would be to do, you know, make a calendar copy, go into that directory, and then just copy the files. Like that. Let's see who we got. We got a recycling truck out here. They'll be done in a minute. All right. Good. Other questions? So one thing to keep in mind when you're doing bash development, right? All the stuff that you're putting inside scripts, you can do from the command line, right? So for example, you're trying to write a script that will, you know, take a date from the user and change the slashes into spaces. And you want to use sed for that, and then you want to put that into awk and do something. You got all this processing you want to do, right? You can write a big long script and run it and see if it works, and if it doesn't work, you can try to put in print statements and all this stuff. But we don't have to do all of that in bash, because bash is really just running things from the command line. So you can break your code up into pieces. For example, you know, I can try a calendar dialog like this and see, hey, you know, this actually does work. What the heck happened to my beautiful calendars? Let's do that again. That's better. All right. So, you know, we can play around with this and, you know, confirm that it works, and it's like, okay, now I want to capture that into a variable, so let's do this stuff, you know, and run that, and that doesn't work, and it's like, oh yeah, I have to do this strange output FD thing. Right, so that works, and I want to do that, and I want to change my slashes into spaces, so right, well that doesn't work. Why isn't that working? Oh, because slash is a special character, so I have to you know, escape my slash like that. Well, that didn't work. Oh yeah, I remember now. We learned that we can use any character instead of a slash. So let's do this. Substitute #, slash #, space #. There we go. Okay, that only replaced the first slash. Oh yeah, we have to put a G at the end to make it global across the entire line. There we go. Right, and now you can, you know, run your history command and see what you did. Okay, so this was how I got the day into this variable called day, and then this was how I echoed that into sed to replace the slashes with spaces, right? And then I could take that and let's go ahead and put this into awk, and let's print this out as a year, month, day with periods in between. I knew that wouldn't work. There we go. That didn't work. There we go. Right? So with C, every time you want to try to fix a problem, you got to make your change, you got to edit, you got to compile, you got to run. With Bash, we can do this in pieces, and we can do it straight from the command line, right? And I just went through, like 10 different ways of trying to do something, but I just did each one at a time right here, and I saw immediately what the result was, and I was able to immediately respond to that and try something different, right? So Bash is nice for like rapid development. Yeah, or you can use the date format. Right, this is good for rapid prototyping, rapid development, and get into the habit of this. Don't rely on putting it in a script and trying to figure out where the problem is and so on. Just work from the command line, right? We can x equals 12. If bracket bracket $x dash equals string sub 3 times 4. Then echo cool, right? I just found out, how to do my if statement that I wanted to do, right? Would this work with an equals sign? Right? Seems to work with an equals sign. Okay, so maybe that works, right? Well, you're gonna lose points if you do that. But this is how you can like check things out. You can do loops from the command line and so on and so forth. All right, so just keep that in mind. You're working with Bash. You can type these things directly at the command prompt and see what they do. Do you want a comment block README for this one? Yes, so you should always, absolutely, no matter what, put your name and basic information into any code that you write, right? Unless maybe you're hacking, and then you don't want to put your name in. But seriously, put your name in there, even if it's not listed as a requirement. It's almost always going to be assumed that you're going to have your name in there somewhere. Let me look at the grading rubric. I don't think I actually require that in the assignment. Nope. So technically, if you don't put your name in there, you'd still get credit. But put your name in, put it in a block that says what it does, and so on. Because somewhere down the road, you're going to be putting together your portfolio to send to Google or Facebook or somewhere to apply for a job. And that's not when you want to go in and start trying to remember what all these programs did and putting in comments and making it look stylized and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's good practice. All right, good. Other questions? So I'm probably not going to be doing emails after class today. So this is your best chance before the assignment gets turned in tomorrow to run through questions, issues, concerns. Will our stuff still be on the server after this ends? After this ends, that sounds so final. So I keep user accounts around for the entire school year. So whatever you're doing now should be on the server, and you should have access to the server through winter and spring. Okay, that includes if you drop the course or leave the sequence at some point. I'll leave the stuff around there. Usually in August, I blow everything away. But you should always have, backups off-site. Remember, there's no backups being done on this server. If something goes wrong, if the hardware fails, all your accounts can disappear, right, without warning. And you've got to have, something in place in case that happens. You should always be backing up, somewhere locally at least, but, ideally to Git. and then after August, right, everything gets cleared out, so you'll want copies of everything before then. But that's a little ways away. All right, good. Other questions, comments? Oh, yeah. So the dialog boxes. So if you use PuTTY, your dialog boxes by default come out with the Q's and the X's and stuff like that, which is not ideal. So let's go ahead and configure PuTTY. So, and this is a little hard to see because it's small. I don't have a way to make this bigger. But in your first setup, if you go under Window, right, so expand Window and go under Translation, there's an item at the very end which says Enable VT100 line drawing even in UTF-8 mode. That box has to be checked, right? And if you check that, then it will go ahead and translate those Q's and X's into nice graphic symbols. All right, and remember, you know, you can load your default settings, you can make all these changes, and then you can save them. Type in, you know, whatever session you want to save it under and save that, and it'll be persistent. Yeah, if you want to try sharing at the end of class, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, give me a second once class ends and we can try that. Yeah. Make a note. All right, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'm hopeful that everybody's going to get their project done. As usual, you know, get as much done as you can. And if it's not working, you know, perfectly, mostly, completely, something like that, right? That's okay. Do as much as you can, present as much as you can, you know, and you can put in a README, right, or send me a note and say, you know, hey, here's where I am, this is what I was trying to do, but I couldn't figure out how to do this thing, and so on and so forth. Should our program be named something, and does it have to be in the root directory, or if we put instructions in the README, is that sufficient? I did not specify a program name for this, so as long as you do something that's halfway reasonable, that should be fine. Don't send me on a treasure hunt through twisty-turny directory passages that all look the same. But yeah, I'm not worried about what you call your script, or if you put it down under some subdirectories and such. All right, so let's talk more about sed. And sed, remember, is primarily about modifying a file line by line. awk is mainly about modifying things within each line, but sed is a editor for making changes to the lines of a file. So let's run through a basic synopsis of some sed commands, how we can write a sed program, and then let's look at some sample code. So the usual way that we run sed is sed, and we specify a program, and then we have an input file. And this program basically specifies changes that should be made to this input file. And sed reads this file, and for each line that it reads, it goes through the program, does whatever the program says, and then it goes and reads the second line from the input, applies the program, and so on and so forth. When it reaches the end of the input file, set exits. Okay, if you don't specify an input file, it just reads from standard in. So whatever you type, or the output of a command that you're piping into it. This program is normally, a short string that we can type, but if we have a program with multiple lines in it, sometimes it's easy to say -f and then list the name of a program file. And that file would contain the actual said program. Let's see, side note, you might not carry your mini how-to from Wednesday is listed as unknown. Oh yeah, thanks for the heads up. Yeah, that's set automatically, because so I have a command called what class is this, and it says it's CSE224B. When I ran it on Wednesday, we weren't in class, so it came out as unknown. So that's what gets tagged on the upload and so on. And I decided to just sort of keep it as that. So yeah, but thanks for noticing. No, that reads from my own schedule. Who knows what I called it though? Probably schedule or something. Yeah, schedule. Can't type. There we go. So how did I deal with the problem of multiple days? Well, I just made a separate entry for each thing in my schedule. So there's just a flat file, right? And
Professor.
yeah.
So if I wanted to sort all of my appointments
Mm-hmm.
from based on date and then also based on time, so
Mm-hmm.
that they're all in order, how would I do that?
So it depends on how you write your appointment file. But for example, if you stored your appointment file as year, month, day, space, hour, minute, right, for start time, and you use military time, so this is 00 through 23, and you put leading zeros and so on. This whole calendar thing, if you sort it alphabetically, it will be date and time sorted. And so there's a nice Unix command, sort. If you just say sort file name, it sorts it, starting with the beginning of each line. You can also specify fields based on position in the line to sort and so on. But easiest way would be something like this, I think.
Okay, so I can sort, like I put it in the chat, I can sort this and it will like do that? Like just say sort? Appointments?
So the AM PM will mess it up though.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
Because technically 10 AM and 07 PM, right? This would come first. But for the sake of sorting, you could move the AM PM in front of the time. And since A comes before P, right? Then the AMs would come out first.
Okay.
And so, one thing that's not uncommon is to take your file and add some extra information to it before you sort it, and then strip that information out once it's sorted. So you could convert to military time, for example. If it's PM, just go ahead and add 12 to this, and then reverse that when you're done if you don't want to keep it in military time internally, or something like that. Or like I say, put the AM and PM in the front for the sake of sorting.
Okay, so when I show the appointments or something, I could say like $time and then PM or AM.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ooh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing, if you want to get into it, is sort has a bunch of features. right? So you can do sort. Where are we? We're good. You can do sort, and you can specify words that you want to sort on. And there's a way to specify what the fields are, where they begin and end. And so I could search, you know, first on the year, month, day, and then on the AM, PM, and then on the hour, and so on. But it's always easiest if you can sort of change the problem to one that you know how to solve, right? So that's the idea behind changing around the format of the file, because it's something you have control over. And that's a classic programming technique, right? If you don't know how to solve the problem, find a new problem, right? Turn the problem into one that you do know how to solve, which is why we can get away with just knowing, you know, 15 or 20 Unix commands. All right, so sed. So basic behavior of sed, right? Read a file, apply a program to each line of the input file. And by default, sed copies each line of input after the program's been run to the output. If you don't want that copy to happen, you can do a -n, which says don't automatically output each line. So let's see a few examples. All right, so here's my file of foods. Simplest sed program in the world, quote, quote. No instructions in the program at all. And I'm going to run it on this file, foods. It's going to read each line of this file. It's going to apply this empty program, which does nothing. And then, by default, it's going to take each line, it's going to copy it to the output. So this just acts like cat. It just shows you the contents of the file. If I do a -n, it says don't do that usual output. Just read the file, apply the program. Well, the program doesn't do anything, so sed doesn't do anything. Okay, it's just a no-op. Now, all the stuff we're doing in sed, none of this affects the file, right? We read the file, we produce output to standard out. So my file is still intact. This is just doing processing on each line as it reads it. All right. So what do our programs look like? Programs basically have the structure of some sort of address and then some kind of instruction. And the address is optional, and the address can also be followed by a comma and a second address. And these addresses can be a line number. They can be a $sign as usual for the last line. Or they can be a pattern, which is a regular expression inside two forward slashes. All right, the instruction can be something like P, which is print, I, which is insert something in the file, A, which is append something in the file after this point, Q, which is quit. So let's just play with those. So suppose, for example, I say sed -n, quote, 2, 4P. All right, it's going to read each line of this file, and it's going to look to see if the line number that it just read is between 2 and 4. And if it is, it will execute this instruction which says print the contents of that line. And I have a -n here which says don't normally copy the input to the output. So this should simply print lines 2, 3, and 4, banana, kiwi, and Coke. All right, so there's your output. If I want to print all the lines containing the word cookie, I can say /cookie p. reads each line of the foods file, compares it to that pattern. If it matches, it will execute this instruction P, which prints out that line. Except it doesn't. Sed-n/cookie. Oh, I have no cookies. I deleted them. Alright, there's my foods file. I got some cookies in there. So, sed-n, look for the pattern cookie, and if you find it, go ahead and execute the instruction P, which prints. So that prints out the cookies in the file. So you could use this to display stuff on a specific date. This is not necessarily related to homework 7. This is a general thing that can be useful in Unix and in scripting, but not necessarily homework 7. Remember, you have the command grep. Grep's the easiest way to search for something in a file. If I just grep for cookie in foods, it'll just show me every line that contains that. If I wanted to delete all my cookies, I could do a grep-v, and that says show me all the lines that don't contain the string cookie, right? And I could take that and I could send that into, you know, a new file, and I could copy that on top of my original file, and that's how I delete all the lines that contain cookie, for example. Sed does not edit the file. It only reads from the file and it outputs the standard out. So you want to do something like send the output into another file and then copy that file on top of the original. That's how you can actually change the file. Alright, we are out of time. So a little more to say about sed, but we got through more of this at the end of the previous class. So take a look at that video. It's about the last 20 minutes of the A section. We talked about sed in more detail. So see the last 20 minutes of that. So tomorrow we'll go over the next programming assignment, and then we'll start doing presentations on homework 7. Okay, I'm really excited to see people's calendar programs. So so this should be fun. Good chance to do some show and tell. Very low key, nothing to be nervous about. It's all Zoom, so you know, just kind of low key. Just show me what you got, show it to the class, talk us through it. All right, so take off if you got to take off. Let me answer a few more questions here. With grep, how do I search specific, comma, X characters, comma, specific? So remember, these are regular expressions, so I could search for you know, a space followed by any 5 characters followed by a space, and it shows me all my lines that contain a 5-letter word separated by spaces. Right, so we can use a period to represent any single character. We can use period star to represent 0 more of any single character. All the stuff we did with regular expressions, right, apply in here for grep or for sed. So when you do this slash pattern as part of a sed program, that's a whole regex. So go back to the regex stuff. Yeah, dot star is useful. All right, cool. Presentations tomorrow after discussing the homework assignment. Next week we'll finish talking about sed. We'll talk about awk. We'll talk about a few more Linux things like symbolic links, hard links, and so on. And then we'll go back into C and we'll talk about some system level stuff, forks, pipes, execs, things like that, just to play around with. All right, cool. Have a great afternoon. I will see you tomorrow. Thanks. And person who wanted to try screen sharing, give me a second and we'll go ahead and do that.